I can't focus. I can't work like this.
Hey, you know, social interaction is very important and tends to lead to a better creative process. I have just the right idea. Follow me.
That was so weird. I think I've been home too long. Where did she go anyway? So maybe Kia wasn't necessarily thinking about ways to help with the feeling of isolation and periods of social distancing, but the fact that this is a function in the Seltos is pretty cool. It actually reminds me of the Mercedes GLS 63 that we just recently reviewed. That had something very similar. But before we dive into this vehicle, I want to give a very special shout out to Kevin. Now I won't say your last name, but Mr. Kevin has been asking for a Seltos review across all of our social media platforms since December when the original announcement was made. So Mr. Kevin, this is dedicated to you. Right, Andie? So straight off the bat, this Seltos is funky, and I'm not just talking paint color, we'll get to that, but it definitely stands out in a segment that can be very bland and boring. So being funky is actually a compliment. And even if you don't like the paint color, you have to admit there is a big pro to this. You'll never lose it in a parking lot. Star bright yellow. But if you really detest the color, I get it. It's not for everyone. It might remind you of baby poop too, but just put that color to the side and appreciate some of these fun details like the headlights. And this trim is the only one that gets LED headlights, and I think it's needed. The 3D silver housing for fog lights is also something unique to the higher trims and really just makes it look that much better. And combine that with this textured grille. And you know what? Watermarks and grime, they don't show up as much. It stays a lot cleaner looking. If this were chrome, I don't think it would look nearly as good. It definitely has a more expensive look. Also unique to this trim, brushed aluminum door handles. And this button's so quick to lock and unlock. You're not rubbing, trying to find just the right spot. Plus these wheels, look at that red trim. Even the roof rails, the way they hang off the end, and I love the black roof. Now this color combo is an extra $345, but it definitely adds a ton of personality. If this were all yellow, I think it would be a bit too much. I also really like this taillight design. But for all my dog lovers out there, the important question, how does a large breed like Andie do in a Seltos? Well, the car is already low, so it makes for easy loading. You can even drop the floor, which is great if you have a tall dog. Now for Andie, I've been keeping it flush with the seats, and I think that has been best. What do you think? And Kia must love dogs because of the fake exhaust tips. Now some of you might hate on it, but it is perfect for protecting those little legs. And the tailpipe on the right points down. It's not even close to Andie as she waits to be loaded. None of the Seltos come with a power tailgate, so if mobility is a bit of an issue, that's something to keep in mind. And Andie definitely appreciates the fact that the rear vents are not blocked when you fold down the seats. But this is one zone climate, so you're gonna have to really jack up the air for your fur kid to feel it back here. And since we've had this pretty much in the heat of the summer, I found that the only way for Andie to really get comfortable is for me to start this up super early and leave the AC blasting the entire time I'm driving. So pack a sweatshirt because you might get a little cold up front. Although another cool design choice that Kia made with the SX Turbo and EX trim was to add solar control glass, which replaces the windshield and front windows with a special glass that reduces interior heat buildup on sunny days. So that is pretty cool, right Andie? Here you go, have yourself a good old carrot. Nice and refreshing. But what's even more exciting is the space. So much, actually class leading, which is great for larger dogs. It doesn't feel like a small, compact CUV. The second row has great space too. Plenty of head space. Do you see the height of that bun? Plus the legroom is good. And speaking of interior, I really appreciate keeping it simple and easy. Separate HVAC controls down here, and that just means the top screen can be dedicated to picking your favorite ambient noise or using CarPlay or Android Auto. And in this trim, the screen is actually larger, along with a larger and nicer looking gauge cluster, which has a rear occupant alert, so when you turn this off, you get a nice reminder, even with the rear seats down, so just in case your mind was somewhere else and, you know, your fur baby was back there. And the speakers, the texture is fabulous, but they really come alive at night, just like we saw in the Soul. Club Kia going on in here, which is super fun, and it also happens to match the colors on the back of my ROG Phone 3. Now that is pretty sweet. And I find the front seat very comfortable. I've heard some say it's a little bit narrow, they're not able to lower it as much as they'd want. For me, it's great, and it adjusts electronically, but you got manual adjustments with the passenger. And if your dog likes to ride on the seats, this particular leatherette is great for pets. Very durable and so easy to wipe down. And I'm glad we're comfy, Andie, but how does this really feel on the road? Now, I can honestly say this 4-cylinder 1.6 liter turbo is definitely the engine to get. We've reviewed this engine before in other Kias and Hyundais. The dual clutch transmission is snappy and it really pairs especially well in here. Now, I know some have said that this ride feels a bit firm, but for us pet owners, if it's a little squishy, it often means it's a little bit more wobbly in that rear. So Andie definitely prefers the firmer ride. And as you can see, Andie's bed fits really well back there. This SX Turbo has all-wheel drive, and from my perspective, it drives really well. Kia definitely did a great job with steering, and there's a ton of safety systems to boot. Actually, 4 of the 5 trims come with all-wheel drive. That's why I find it a little odd they slap 2 all-wheel drive badges on each side of the fender. Official! It kind of makes me think of BMW and the X2. Remember when the auto community totally made fun of them for slapping 2 emblems on the C-pillar quarter panel? I actually think Kia could have got away with it in here and it still would have looked cool. So basically, if you want front-wheel drive, you have to go with a lower tier S trim. The backup camera in this, very clear and helpful. It's only a backup camera, but check out the front bumper. You see how it's angled more upward? So if you're prone to pulling a little too close up to a curb, you don't have to worry about scratching your underside. And technically, if all you cared about was all-wheel drive, looks, and space, you could even go with the LX trim, which starts just under $22K, but you do lose out on some safety tech with the base trims. And something else, a little odd, if you really like this color combo, you can't get a sunroof, which is a little bit of a bummer because that's something we would totally enjoy in cooler weather. So I really recommend going on the Kia website, looking at the options, figuring out what you want before you go to a dealership. The good news, a fully loaded Seltos like this one is just shy of $30K, and I think that is fabulous. Big thanks to Kia for letting us lab test this 2021 Seltos. Oh, Missy, I got a question for you. Is this lab approved? Yep, totally lab approved. Thanks so much for subscribing. Make sure you click the bell and be sure to follow Andie on Twitch so you know when we go live. And as usual, we will post pics of this Seltos all week on Instagram. We'll see you next time. Bye.